Welcome back to The Loop, your weekly dose of all things property management. I'm your host, Collin Stewart, and each week we're going to dive into the latest trends, strategies, and stories shaping the property management world. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just getting started, we're here to provide insights, expert interviews, and practical tips to help you navigate the ever-evolving landscape of property management. Welcome back to The Loop. My name is Collin Stewart. I'm your host today, and today we are joined by AJ Rounds. We are going to talk about property management and dive into some of the finer details on why the ownership model and third-party property management can be in conflict sometimes, some of the things that AJ has learned from not losing a client over 9 years, and some of the things you brought in from your VC career into the property management space. AJ, welcome to the show.
Thank you. So good to be here on The Loop, Collin. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. I'm really excited to have this episode. It's not often that kind of worlds cross, in that I spend a lot of time working with VCs in my other life, and then on the property management side. And so I'm really curious. I want to start with, how did you get into property management as a VC?
Yeah, so cool. Great question. I love real estate, always have. We grew up as kids helping my father remodel his student housing with, painting jobs and landscaping jobs. So I knew that world. So now, is property management sexy? Is it exciting? Is it what everyone's talking about? Is it the Wall Street darling? No, it's none of that. But what it is an ongoing cash flow business model where you bring on properties from third-party investors. You manage them for them in a way that they appreciate from an investor perspective. And the reason we do that is because we just manage it like we're investors, right? And so I don't have to send out invoices. I manage all the funds. They come to me in a trust account. We pay ourselves first, minus expenses, and the balance goes to the investors for whom we manage their properties on a monthly basis.
And I love the attraction to the business model, and I could definitely see how investing in properties, there's just something tangible than investing in shares. As somebody I've started a tech company, I've issued stock or options to my employees at like big values. It's not very tangible. You're like, in theory, this is worth a few $100K, but
right. It's
also this paper that you're never going to sign or see or whatever. There's just something there's nothing real. It feels like sometimes. And so having a house or something tangible that you can go and visit just seems a lot more real sometimes. Yeah. Talk to me about the early days. It must have been a bit of a shift going from investing in startups to investing in properties.
Yes, it was. I didn't get into this business to be a property manager. That was never my aspiration. What happened was I had my own properties, about a dozen doors, and I was looking around for a good property manager, and I could not find one that I liked, number one, or that I trusted, or that had a good track record. So I thought, I can do this myself. And so I purchased a franchise from the Key Renter corporate entity, which they're awesome. The rest of them were already sold out. They had no properties, they had no franchises available. So we went with Key Renter. The reason I needed a franchise, because I was so busy with Rev Road, our venture capital firm, I'm like, I got to have a plug and play, just all the SOPs, all the systems, all the softwares, everything's in place. So, and that was for the most part the case, right? So we pulled the business off the shelf, if you will. We started, I started doing the biz dev side of it, bringing on new properties and new investors and new landlords, we call them. Once it got to about every 60 properties, you need to get another property manager. So that's kind of our amount of properties per employee. And so as we grew and hit each of those milestones, we would just keep hiring property managers. And today we're still fairly small because I keep it pretty boutique. We're 250 plus. So it's still small, but we do that on purpose because we curate the properties we bring on. We're not managing just multi-million-dollar homes. We have those too, but we are managing properties that look nice. They're fairly new. Your typical 3.5 bed, maybe 4 bed, 3 bath, 2-car garage. That's the kind of home we are typically managing because they rent the best. And our time on market is pretty minimal.
That's fantastic. Yeah. You touched on something interesting, which is the lack of responsiveness with some other property management firms. And I've experienced this as a tenant back when I was renting. And even when, I live in a townhouse and our property manager, we've had 4 or 5, and like only one of them has ever actually responded to me.
It's terrible.
It's awful.
I can't believe it.
And so this seems to be, the norm, as opposed to
Yeah.
an exception. I mean, we're talking 1 out of 5. It was actually good. And then now what I'm saying is like this one that we have, she's fantastic. And then because she's so good, her company keeps loading up more and more and more units on top of her. And like there's going to be a point where she breaks. And it seems like it's been really hard for the company, because I've talked to the owner a number of times, to get the talent in to service all the units. And so you find a couple of real good folks and you just keep loading them up until they break. And that tends to be the cycle. I'm curious if you see something similar, and if not, like, how are you staying out of that?
Yeah, great question. It is a concern, right? Because you don't want to overload any one person, because then everyone suffers, right? And so that's why we say you can manage up to 60 properties as one person and no
Mm-hmm.
more. We've actually divided into departments. So we have a leasing department, we have a maintenance department, we have a property management department, we have a business
Mm-hmm.
development department, and we have an accounting department. And there's a lead for each one of those departments, so that they're controlling everything related to their domain for multiple properties. And then at the property management side, we can make sure that we're keeping quality high. I was amazed at how low the bar was when I got into this industry. So it's interesting that there's just not a sense of urgency. I think it is because there are so many properties that other companies manage that they're overloaded. Talent is hard. And we've typically instead of gone the property manager route, we've actually gone customer service and or like the maintenance route. We've got a lot of maintenance folks on our staff that are really good, that
Mm-hmm.
are good at customer service vicariously. And then we've had some great customer service folks that we've pulled from other industries that do well in property management, because it is just the same customer service principles apply, just a different set of, skills and knowledge that you have to learn.
Interesting. And then so you pulled them from a customer service role, and then are there any property management licenses they have to get in order to kind of interact with tenants and owners?
Yeah, several of our lead property managers, in fact, one of them, she's Melissa is her name. She's amazing. She'll work towards getting her real estate license. In
Mm-hmm.
Utah, this last legislative session, and that's something to note, is each state manages property managers a little differently. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not the same across the board. In Utah specifically, property managers were licensed under the real estate umbrella. So we were realtors, which didn't really fit, but that's all they had. And then this last legislative session, they actually passed a new law where if we have a real estate license, we can still operate, no problem. But there is a separate, more specific property management license that they can get that pertains more to the property management side. And I think
Interesting.
that's been a good change. And so we'll encourage a lot of our team. Of course, we'll take care of the costs and things, but we'll encourage them to get those property manager licenses.
Gotcha. Capping folks at 60 properties under management seems like, and I hate to put you on the spot here, but that seems like it's really taken a cut into your margins. Like I've talked to others where the bar is 90 or 100 units.
That is true, and it can. But because we are managing, that amount of properties per property manager, we're able to make sure that we're maximizing revenue for each property. Meaning, we're about mid-grade as far as our our management fee. We're at 9%, which is
Mhm.
not too high and not too low, right? Because there's people above us and people below us as far as other competitors. Where we make some of our money is just making sure that we've managed the property well. So if there's a violation fee, we're making sure to charge that. If there's pets, we're making sure the pet fee is charged. We're making sure that, those costs that are incurred other than just the management fee are actually logged and tracked and charged the way they should be. And in that way, we're able to increase our revenues as much as possible per property. And we call it revenue per unit, and keep that
Mhm.
number higher than most, so we can compensate for having fewer properties per person.
Tell me about your 3 F's framework.
Yeah, thank you for asking about that. So first is firm. We have to be firm in what we're doing with property management. And sometimes there's just no getting around it. You have to be not rude and not belligerent, but you have to be firm in what you're saying. But
Mhm.
before that comes friendly. We got to be friendly in everything we're doing so that people can approach us. They feel like they can ask questions, whether it's a tenant, a vendor, an investor. We got to be friendly. And then firm is next, and then the last one is fair. And I just don't agree with property managers that say, "Oh no, I'm the property manager. It's my final say." My
Mhm.
approach is, and the approach I have my team take is, okay, there's an issue here. We feel this way. You feel this way. Is there a common middle ground so that it feels fair for both sides? We're going to give a
Mhm.
little. You've got to give a little, and let's come to a an agreement or a compromise that works for both of us. And if we take that approach with everything, like we've never had a massive lawsuit. I mean, you talk to a lot of property managers and they've dealt with a lot of them. We have a great legal team behind us? Yes. But we don't
Mhm.
use them a lot, thankfully, because we try to take this friendly, firm, and fair approach with our tenants, specifically our investors next and our vendors third.
It kind of dovetails with the question, which is the whole view I'm getting of how you're kind of approaching the renter and the property management business and managing your owners is you're taking the long view, whether it's investing in paying more to paying your property managers more or paying them to do less work than they would in other places, investing in the technology, investing in the training, investing in the owner relationships. You're really
Right.
taking the long view.
That's right. Because what we found is most of our investors, if we're doing well with one property, they will typically bring on another one and then a third one and a fourth one. And that's good business for us because then our acquisition cost goes way down. So that's the approach we take. And the average home is with the property manager. One I recently saw was 3.7 years, and we're
Mhm.
closer to 7, right? So it just pays off long term.
Right on. Yeah. I mean, I've spent my last 13, 14 years in helping startups like find their
Hmm.
first customers. And the absolute best customer acquisition channel is referrals.
That's right.
Not
That's
just
right.
because it's the cheapest, because it means you're doing a good job.
That's right. And it's a
That's
warm
the
lead.
piece.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. They always
Well,
close. If we can bring it short term for a minute, you mentioned AI earlier. I'd love to hear some examples of how you're actually implementing this. Because I've talked to a lot of companies, and there certainly is a lot out there, but I feel like there's still some scaffolding that's missing to go from the LLM can make me super productive to I use this for everything I do.
that's right. Great question. And we're still working on implementing some things with our CRM Lead Simple.
Hmm.
And they are attached to Appfolio, which is our property management software. They are incorporating some AI features to where writing emails and drafting contracts and agreements can be much faster through AI. Recently, I think, and that's been helpful and we use that. But what I have really appreciated recently is we changed our phone system entirely. I'm not gonna throw them under the bus, but it just wasn't the right fit for us. It just didn't give us it didn't meet our needs, right? And so we moved over to Open Phone, and guess what? That
Hmm.
literally answers and tracks all of your calls all by itself. And every call it takes, it's learning more and more how you answer calls and how you answer questions to where it will eventually be able to just do all of the calls itself. And I love that because I'm a huge fan, like we talked about earlier, let's not miss any calls. And if we do, let's get back to them, in an hour or two. And with AI, that will be even more possible. So I'm really excited about that feature and how we can use AI to our advantage to really keep the communication with our people instantaneous,
Hmm.
high quality, and flowing always.
Amazing. Last question for you. What do you think are the biggest opportunities for disruption in property management going forward?
Yeah, it's a great question. So property management is going to grow exponentially because there's going to be more and more properties to manage because people are renting.
Hmm.
So the biggest disruptor in the space, I think, then is to manage. And I think when we see that roll up and that corporatization of property management, I think we're going to see less and less of a personal approach or a personal touch, and more just automated. You are a number, get in line kind of thing. And that'll be difficult for people that are renting because they're just going to feel like, okay, I don't really matter. My needs aren't really met. And I'm talking from the tenant perspective mostly.
Hmm.
I think if you can keep yourself, I don't want to say boutique, but if you can keep yourself really connected to your investors that you're managing properties for and the tenants that are in those properties, the properties will stay in much better condition overall. And it will be a better experience for everyone involved.
Let's keep it personal. Let's keep it small. Let's keep it local, boutique.
That's right.
Totally. AJ, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really enjoyed our conversation. If people are
Likewise.
curious about you, your other ventures, or they want to get in touch, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Yeah, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So reach out to me on LinkedIn. My phone number is there, I think, and as is my email. So I'm pretty accessible, which is dangerous sometimes, but I think for the most part, it's been okay. But DM me is the best. I look at all my DMs and happy to have a conversation and see what you're up to.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Colin, it's been a pleasure. You do a great job. Thanks for your show. Thanks for doing this. And I appreciate this specialized niche in property management. There's not a lot out there in property management specifically. There's a lot of real estate podcasts and a lot of investment podcasts, but property management specifically, there isn't a lot. So this is going to be great. I'm excited for the future for this.
Me too. Thanks, AJ. And thanks to everybody for listening. We'll catch y'all next time.